Have you noticed that the most interesting people in your life are often the ones you see the least of online? They view your stories. They might even send a quiet like, but their own profile is a ghost town. We often mistake their silence for sadness or their absence for loneliness. But what if we have it backwards? What if they aren't hiding from the world, but are the only ones truly living in it? Today, we uncover the psychology of the silent observer. Sarah, thank you for sitting down with me. It is ironic, isn't it? We are here to talk about silence, yet the world we live in demands constant noise to start. I want to ask you about the before. Before you went silent, what did your digital life look like?
It looked perfect. It looked full. If you scrolled through my feed 3 years ago, you would have seen a life that was curated to the millisecond every coffee cup had to be aesthetically pleasing. Every sunset was a photo opportunity, not a moment to end the day. I was sharing everything, laughter, tears, but even the pain was dressed up with filters. I thought I was sharing my life. But looking back, I wasn't living it. I was performing it.
Performing it. That is a powerful distinction. Psychologists often talk about identity crafting in this context. The idea that our posts aren't just communication, but an unconscious audition for belonging. Did you feel that? That you were auditioning for your own life?
Absolutely. It felt like every status update, every caption was me secretly asking the world, this is who I am. Do you approve? Hell, it's exhausting. There is this subtle, invisible pressure. When you share something beautiful, you get this rush of validation. But then the next day, you feel you have to outdo it. You have to be happier, prettier, more successful. It's a treadmill. I realized that my sense of worth had become completely attached to digital applause. If a post didn't get enough engagement, I genuinely felt like I wasn't enough.
That aligns with what researchers call the external locus of control. You were outsourcing your self-esteem to an algorithm. But tell me about the breaking point. The decision not to post comes after a kind of emotional burnout. Was there a specific moment where the screen went black for you?
There was. I was on a trip with my family. We were at this breathtaking beach. The sun was hitting the water in this way that looked like liquid gold. My first instinct, my reflex, was to grab my phone. I started trying to get the angle right, moving my family around, telling them to act natural. And suddenly I looked at my dad. He was just watching the waves. He looked so peaceful, and I looked at my phone screen, and I felt this wave of emptiness. I realized I was trying to capture the moment so desperately that I was completely missing it. I wasn't there. I was an editor of my reality, not a participant. I put the phone down, and I haven't really picked it up in that way since.
That reflex you mentioned, the urge to display, it is conditioned. We have spent a decade training our brains to equate validation with value. Stepping away from that loop is essentially a detox. But Sarah, let's be honest about the transition. When you stopped posting, did you feel invisible?
Oh God, yes, that was the hardest part. There is this deep fear that if you don't post, you don't exist. I remember the first week, I did something really cool at work and I didn't share it. I felt this phantom itch to open Instagram, and then this dark thought crept in. If nobody sees this, does it still count? Or it sounds ridiculous saying it out loud, but that is the self-presentational pressure we live under. We are constantly aware of being watched, even when we aren't.
It isn't ridiculous. It is human nature amplified by technology. We are social creatures. But there is a concept called psychological ownership that I think applies here. It suggests that when we share something, a memory or a thought, we lose a bit of ownership over it. it becomes public property. Did you find that keeping things to yourself changed how those memories felt?
That is the perfect term for it. Yes, it changed everything. When I stopped broadcasting, I started like keeping things is like before a funny moment with a friend was content. Now it's just ours. It feels sacred. There is this quiet kind of freedom in knowing that I have secrets, not bad secrets, just beautiful little things that the world doesn't get to touch or judge or misinterpret. I realized that by not posting, I wasn't hiding. I was protecting. I was guarding my ownership over my own life.
Guarding your ownership. That is a profound shift. You move from seeking digital closeness to building real closeness. How did your relationships change? Because the common fear is that if you leave social media, you lose your friends.
I lost the audience, but I found my friends. That's the difference. When you stop posting, the people who only know you as an avatar fade away. And that's okay. But the people who really care, they check in, they text, we meet for coffee, and the conversations, Eileen, they are so much fuller because they haven't already seen the highlight reel of my week, and I get to tell them the story for the first time. It's raw, it's not a broadcast, and it feels heavier in a good way. Real connection isn't measured in comments, it's in shared silence, in eyes meeting.
You are describing a transition from performance to presence. Those who don't post often score higher on traits like introspection and emotional independence. They aren't trying to prove who they are. They are trying to understand it. Do you feel you understand yourself better now?
100%. When you are posting constantly, you are always looking at yourself from the outside in. How do I look to them? Now, I look from the inside out. I've rediscovered the simplicity of doing things just for me. Cooking a meal without photographing it. It actually tastes better. Traveling without tagging the location. I actually see the place. In that space of silence, something awakens. It's a self-awareness that doesn't need an audience. I realized I don't need the digital echo of "you're enough" to believe it anymore.
That is the definition of internal locus of control. Your sense of worth comes from within. But I want to touch on the observer aspect. The title of our discussion today refers to the silent observer in a noisy world. You haven't deleted your accounts. You still scroll. You still watch. How does it feel to observe the noise without adding to it?
It's fascinating. You see things differently. When you aren't worried about your own caption, you analyze others more deeply. You start to see the patterns. You see the desperation for validation in a selfie. You see the loneliness behind a party video. It makes you more empathetic, actually. You realize everyone is just shouting, "Look at me, I exist." Being the silent observer feels like sitting in a quiet room while a storm rages outside. You feel steady. You aren't detached. You just have control. You choose what the world doesn't get to know.
Control, that is a key word. In a world that rewards display, silence is a form of rebellion. It is saying, I exist beyond your perception. Sarah, there are people listening right now who are exhausted. They are tired of the unconscious audition. But they are terrified to stop. They worry about being forgotten. What would you say to them?
I would say your worth doesn't disappear when nobody is looking. It's still there. In fact, it becomes more solid. If you are feeling that burnout, that fatigue of comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel, try it just for a week. Keep one meaningful thing entirely to yourself. Don't post it, just let it sit in your memory. See how that feels. You might find that the fear of being forgotten is replaced by the joy of being found by yourself.
Being found by yourself. That is beautiful. It connects to the idea of congruence, the alignment between who you are inside and who you show the world. In the age of filters, that alignment is constantly distorted. By stopping the performance, you restored that alignment.
Exactly. I stopped editing my life into something digestible. I started living it in all its messy, complex reality. And yes, some people might think I'm distant or mysterious, but I've learned that being unseen is not the same as being insignificant. It's actually where real identity is formed.
Sarah, before we close, I want to ask about the sensory experience of this. When you step away, colors look richer, time feels slower. Is that poetic exaggeration, or is that your reality?
It is literal. When you aren't scanning your environment for content, you actually absorb the details. The way light hits a wall, the sound of distant laughter. You are fully alive inside the moment instead of standing outside of it trying to capture it. That presence was the rarest currency we have today, and I wouldn't trade it for all the likes in the world.
It seems that in choosing silence, you didn't lose your voice. You found it. You found a quiet confidence.
I did, and I realized that not every truth is meant for the crowd. Some parts of us deserve to remain untouched by algorithms.
Sarah, thank you for sharing your silence with us today. It was loud in the most meaningful way.
Thank you, Eileen.
We often assume that the people who don't post are missing out, that they are falling behind. But as Sarah showed us, perhaps they are the ones who have remembered what the rest of us forgot. They remind us that life isn't a performance. It's an experience. If you are feeling the weight of the digital gaze, remember this. You don't owe the world a performance. You don't owe an explanation for your silence. Maybe it is time to reclaim your psychological ownership, to keep your moments untouchable, private, and pure. Because in a world so desperate to be seen, the most radical thing you can do is just be. I'm Eileen. Thank you for listening to The Quiet.